Joe, Colorado versus Utah really starting to shape out the Big 12 here as Colorado comes away with a big win. Now 6-1 in the Big 12 is Colorado, the playoff contending Colorado Buffs with Coach Prime.
We're going to get to BYU in a little bit, and I said last week, and I said it very confidently, and look what happened in the late night slate of games. I said that BYU was overrated, and they couldn't get the job done. Again, we're going to get to that in a little bit. I think I was reassured, and I saw a lot of clarity in believing that Colorado would truly be the best representative for the Big 12 to go to the playoff. And it's for two reasons. One, they're the only team in the Big 12 that has the defensive line that can create pressures and can stop the run. They had 9 tackles for loss. They had 4 sacks in this game. And you watched on a snap-to-snap basis the pressures that resulted in creating the 3 interceptions that Isaac Wilson had. On top of this, when you play really good defense up front, the way that they're able to distribute the ball to different playmakers on a snap-to-snap basis and even on special teams, we saw a number of big returns in this game from different guys. Just the ability to rely on so many different athletes is what makes this Colorado squad so different from the rest of the Big 12.
Especially in that conference. In that conference.
Exactly. This is something that I've brought up in draft perspective in a draft perspective on this show. The Big 12 does not have the same level of just general talent as other conferences, and Colorado is the singular exception to that. They have playmakers 4 deep at receiver that you can rely on. And I've mentioned Augustave, who didn't have a crazy big game. He only rushed for 59 yards, but he had a long 37-yard rushing touchdown where we saw the burst that he has and what he can be as a facet to this run game. Colorado just continues to be impossible to keep up with, and there's a couple other takeaways that I have with them, but we were very quickly reminded of why they were favored so heavily and why we picked them to win this game.
So 2 things. Number 1, before I talk about the game here, Travis Hunter is not from this planet. I'm pretty sure that he is from the planet Mars, that he came down in those UFOs. By the way, you saw this week that apparently UFOs are actually real. He came in one of the – you didn't see the Senate hearing committee thing? Anyway, so it was all over Twitter. That's the only reason that I know.
I don't trust Twitter.
Probably shouldn't. Well, I mean, it's in the – anyway.
Okay.
He's not from this planet. He had an interception. He had the ridiculous catch. He had the technical run for a touchdown. He had 5 catches, 55 yards. I mean, he went off. He showed us what it looks like for a high premier athlete, Joe, to like if you see a premier athlete in the Big Ten or the SEC, okay, that's what it looks like when a guy like that plays against the Big 12 every week. That's exactly what it looks like. But he's doing it on both ways, man. He had a PBU and a pick. Like, and that's the thing. He is the unicorn amongst unicorns at the current moment. Joe, it's the turnovers, man. I mean, it's great. Colorado, in reference to the game, Colorado was able to generate those turnovers. You know, the pick by Hunter, the one down the sideline that Wilson threw. It was also that he made very poor decisions, meaning Wilson. And Colorado just kept capitalizing on it, man. They kept capitalizing on it over and over and over again.
It's a sign of a good football team is that when your opponent makes mistakes is you ride that momentum and you turn it into points. And that's what I want to. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I want to bring this up too. We give a lot of hype to Travis Hunter, but DJ McKinney, who plays opposite of him, number 8, had a phenomenal game, and he's somebody who a month ago on the draft show that I do, I gave him a little bit of love because I think that he's not getting enough recognition. He's a tall, long kid. He's great in coverage, and he's great when the ball's in the air. He's somebody who paints this whole picture of why this defense has been so productive lately.
Well, if we're going to give praise to Colorado here, I'm not going to even go with a player. I don't think Shedeur deserves a lot of credit for everything that he does. Mm-hmm. However, here's the God's honest truth. Joe, Colorado is tied for first in the Big 12. And we got to have a massive conversation about Deion. You know, look, man, I didn't like a lot of the antics in the offseason. Okay, I thought there was too much out there. Doesn't matter right now. They're going on the field and they've played. You know, in week 1, we talked about this. You know, Joe, with the game that came up, I felt like that I had heard nothing about them since camp started. There's no outside drama, nothing going on, and we had a whole segment about it. But, man, what Deion has done at Colorado, he has taken a one-win team, and now we're talking about them in playoff conversations because that is where Colorado is right now, winning the big – even if they weren't, even if they were not in playoff conversations, okay, the simple nature that not only have they made a bowl game in the second year of Deion, not only are they potentially going to win the Big 12, that would have been big enough in and of itself that you would have to have given Deion credit because look what he took over. I think, Joe, we all went into the season thinking that Utah was going to be the team to beat because we all thought Cam Rising would be healthy, even though somebody on the show kept warning everybody, but I don't know. That's the storyline of the Big 12. That right there. Now, they have 2 losses. It is what it is, but they have 1 in-conference loss. Joe, they can run the table here and get into a Big 12 championship game and win this thing. And we're talking about them as a playoff contender. So I wanted to give Travis a lot of love for what he did. But this win, because it's Utah and they've been winning the Pac-12 and playoff contenders, that's the biggest thing. You really are sealing the deal on what was the favorite coming into the season here, regardless of their record.
Yeah, the way that this has shaped out has been tremendous. That they were able to capitalize and play the way that they did against Utah.
Deep, wide receiver, dude. They're just so deep.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, there's so few teams in the country that have as many receivers that they can rely on and weapons that they can rely on. They got remaining, by the way, just to look ahead a little bit here. They've got Kansas on the road, and then they get Oklahoma State at home. Both accomplishable, winnable games. That's funny that Oklahoma State game is on ABC at noon on rivalry weekend. That's funny that I mean they're going to kick the crap out of Oklahoma State. I don't think that's going to be a very fun game to watch. I wonder what they're going up against in that time slot. But 2 winnable games that they should set themselves up to go on to the playoff and win the Big 12.
Well,
I'm not
going to say win the Big. Joe, they still got to win it here. I mean, like
I know that they do, but I just don't think that there's what makes a good playoff worthy team and a team worthy of winning their conference. You need to be great in a certain area. No other team in the Big 12 right now is great in a particular area. They're average. All of these teams that we have spent the whole season talking about, that are still in the conversation: Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State, who's now out of it. Baylor, by the way, snuck their way up, like breathing down some people's necks, but they're not in the total scope of things. They're too average for me to feel like that those teams are deserving to win the Big 12 and to go on and be competitive in the playoff. That's why I started this segment by saying is that the best representative for the Big 12 has to be Colorado, because I could see a world where they have a couple of big splash plays that helps them win a game against a team like Indiana. Win a game against I don't know if they'd knock off an SEC team if they're really built, their offensive line's really built to take on a challenge like that. But there is a possibility that these receivers that we keep hyping up could completely take over and have a huge performance.
Yeah. Okay. So calm down. All right. When they get in there, they calm down.
I'm not being crazy here. I didn't say that they're winning a national championship. No, I'm just saying that
against Ole Miss, good and goddamn well.
That's why I said I don't think that they're like Ole Miss. We saw what Ole Miss did against that Georgia offensive line.
So there's a strong possibility that they would have to take on one of these SEC teams. Stop.
I know, like Tennessee's not a good matchup for them. Ole Miss isn't a good match. But again, team like Indiana is a winnable football game for them. Penn State, they could beat Penn State. I think that they could beat Penn State if they turn that thing into a high-scoring shootout. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.